Today on CityCast Nashville, Nashville's $3.8 billion budget is officially in its final stretch. Metro Council Budget and Finance Committee Chair Kyonzté Toombs walks us through what changes we may see in her substitute once everyone's feedback is in. We break down what's at stake, what's happening with the contentious Downtown Partnership budget, and where we go from here. It's Tuesday, June 9th. I'm Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. So back in early May, Mayor Freddie O'Connell proposed a $3.8 billion budget for the fiscal year of 2027. This amount essentially doubled over a decade. Does a bigger budget automatically mean better services for everybody, or is it just a little bit more complicated than that?
To an extent, it's a little bit more complicated because Nashville has grown so much over the last decade, and we're just trying to keep up. So it is very expensive to operate and govern and provide services to a city the size of Nashville. We've got about 700,000 residents. We hope there are better services because we've made some significant investments over the past several years, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have increased services. At a baseline, we're just keeping up, but trying to improve over time.
Well, last week, over 100 people showed up at Metro's public budget hearing. What was the word on the street? What did you hear from residents this year? What do people really want to prioritize with the budget?
I think the underlying sentiment is that it's very expensive to live in Nashville. Folks don't feel like they make enough money to live here. There is concern over how the city approaches housing in terms of affordable housing. There was a lot of advocates for a new concept called, well, it's new to us, called social housing. We heard from our folks representing and speaking on behalf of our safety net hospital, Nashville General Hospital, which is the only hospital in the city that treats the whole patient. There were advocates for eviction right to counsel. Unfortunately, because it has become increasingly unaffordable to live in the city, we have a lot of folks facing eviction. And there are several nonprofits, all of whom do magnificent work in the city and help a lot of folks and operate on a shoestring budget and are, looking to the city to provide some funding.
Did anything in the pile of asks surprise you?
No, folks have gotten increasingly better in their advocacy since I've been on council. This is my 7th budget cycle. And I think before, folks really didn't know how to approach the government and ask for things in the budget. I know myself and other colleagues have really put in a lot of effort to educate folks on the budget and how to get involved early. So we've been hearing a lot of the same requests for months. So going into public hearing, most of what was requested I'd heard before.
You and your council colleagues also get to have a wish list. So what's on yours?
So as the chair, I am trying to foster open dialogue between my colleagues. I want to hear what they would like to see in my proposed substitute. I will be filing a substitute to the mayor's budget, moving some funds around. We don't get any new money to work with, but we're just taking from places and moving it to another place. But I want to hear what my colleagues want to see so that we can kind of together get to a reasonable list. Because oftentimes, as the chair, if I say up front, well, this is what I want to see, it kind of cuts off the dialogue.
Well, that's an important job to just listen to everybody, sit back and listen and then adjust. So each Metro department has been asked to reduce its spending by 1.5%, which works out to be about $20 million in savings. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this tightening of the belt this fiscal year? And what's the reasoning for this? What's the mayor saying?
For the past several years, Nashville has experienced an economic boom. We've had higher than anticipated sales tax revenue. We have increased property taxes once in 2020 and then again in 2025, which hasn't, brought in new revenue. But that historic growth is kind of plateauing. And so what you're seeing is that we're returning to normal growth. It feels abnormal to us because we're used to abundance. And so as we kind of level set and get adjusted to a normal pace of revenue growth, that requires some tightening of the belt. Because if you look at our budget from last year and this year, you only see about a $49 million difference, which in a $3.8 billion budget is not a lot of money. That's not a lot of growth. You can do some things with $49 million, but, in past years when you're looking at 100 million plus, there's a big difference. We're not cutting any services. All services will remain the same. It's just asking departments to tighten their belt a little bit as we readjust to a normal pace of growth.
And like you said earlier, affordable housing came up over and over and over again from residents at the hearing. And there's a huge push to fully fund the Barnes Fund at $30 million. But can you remind our listeners, what is the Barnes Fund and where it currently stands as of right now?
So the Barnes Fund, it was started, I believe, in 2013 or 2014, and it grew out of the influence of Reverend Bill Barnes. It is a fund in which Metro, and we have a Housing Trust Fund Commission that kind of governs the Barnes Fund, but Metro gives grants to affordable housing providers and nonprofits. And those monies are used as leverage to be able to borrow additional funds. So my understanding, $1 of Barnes gets you about $7 additional dollars in capital funding. So it's a really popular and important tool in providing affordable housing. A few years back, there was an affordable housing task force that got together and looked at how we approach housing as a city. And one of that task force recommendations was that we fund the Barnes Fund at $30 million a year. I think we've only done that 1 year, and we used some ARPA funds, which were the federal dollars that came down during the pandemic. But we have increased it every year for the most part. I believe the $22 million that's proposed by the mayor is $8 million or so more than last year. I don't recall the exact number from last fiscal year, but the $22 million is the highest ever from our operating account.
Okay, so just to do some math, it looks like you need to scrape up $8 million to fully fund it. Is that possible?
We will look at the numbers.
Okay.
There are a lot of requests. You have your nonprofits, eviction right to counsel. To fully fund that is $9 million. There's $2.4 million in the mayor's proposed budget. There are some organizations that provide needed services to our unhoused neighbors, and that's millions of dollars too, if you combine it all. So the number keeps going up and up. So,
are you sleeping well at night? Does this keep you up? Looking for the perfect summer night out in Nashville? Don't miss Bluegrass Night at the Hermitage on June 12th, part of the new Roots and Rhythms Americana concert series presented by Wilson Bank and Trust. Doors open at 5 with a special pre-concert ceremony at 6:30 and live music beginning at 7. Hosted by Craig Havikhurst, producer and co-host of the weekly bluegrass show, The Old Fashioned. The evening will feature live performances by Frank Sullivan and Dirty Kitchen and Sacred Hollow. The event will also include a special presentation honoring Ed Snodderly as 2026 Roots and Rhythms Legacy Award recipient. Bring a blanket or lawn chair and enjoy live bluegrass, local food and drinks, and one of the most unique outdoor concert settings in Tennessee. Tickets are $20 for general admission, $10 for Hermitage members, and kids 13 and under get in for free. VIP tickets are also available for $50 and include lounge access, priority seating, a private bar, and more. Bluegrass Night is just the start of the summer-long Roots and Rhythms series at the Hermitage. Get your tickets today at thehermitage.com. If your windows are drafty, noisy, or just plain outdated, it might be time for an upgrade. And guess what? You are in luck, because Window Nations is running its Buy 4 Windows, Get 4 free sale going on now. Introducing Illumilite windows exclusively for Window Nation. They're designed to give you triple pane performance with the look and weight of a double pane window. Their windows help improve energy efficiency, reduce outside noise by 15% or more, and add more light and brightness to your home. They're also easier to open, clearer to see through, and built to keep your home comfortable year-round, all backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Plus, Window Nation measures 3 times, installs in as little as 1 day, and offers more than 1,500 styles and colors. With decades of experience and millions of windows installed nationwide, you can trust the job gets done right the first time. Don't wait to put an end to your window problems. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com. Well, going back to the hearing, we heard a lot from Metro employees, especially teachers, saying their wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living here in Nashville. How do you and your colleagues respond to that?
In the fiscal year 21 budget, we made a historic investment in Metro schools, and that made our teachers the highest paid in the state. So we definitely, as a city, value education. We value our teachers. Where it gets complex is that we fund schools mostly with property taxes, and folks get upset when their property taxes increase. So you have to balance, yes, we need to pay teachers. Yes, we need to make sure schools have what they need. The desire is not to tax people out of Nashville. So you have to balance what is a reasonable property tax increase. How can we identify efficiencies so that we're getting schools the money that it needs? And we try to get as close as we can to, paying teachers more and more year over year. But unfortunately, the funds are limited, and that's the reality.
You said after the public budget meeting that when we get to today, we have our public hearing. It's meant to be a conversation. It's not meant to be where the public has to come here to beg us to include things in the substitute budget. How should the budget process work? Is there a way for people's needs to be included from the get-go?
One of the things that Councilmember Berkeley Allen did when she was budget chair, I believe for fiscal year 23, she implemented what's called a pre-budget public comment period, and that's held in February. And so around that time, departments themselves are meeting with the mayor and the mayor's team, and they're submitting their budget request. And so the pre-budget comment period is an opportunity for members of the public to also voice what they would like to see in the budget ahead of the mayor submitting his proposed budget, which is due by May 1st. And then it also clues council members in as far as what to look for when we're reviewing the mayor's proposed budget. So you've got the pre-budget comment period. I did a 4-part budget education series where I went to different parts of the county, teaching about various aspects of the budget, showing people how to get plugged in. You've got your council member that you can always, reach out to any day of the week. I think people have gotten more sophisticated because of those efforts. And so most people do, particularly community groups and nonprofits, do reach out early on in the process. There's still room, I think, for improvement because there's still some people who don't know that you can do any of that stuff. And so when they show up for a public hearing, because they don't know about any of the prior work that has occurred, they're thinking that this is the first time. They're probably not familiar with the folks who are on council, so they don't know what our individual ideologies are. And I used, the example of folks talking about their pay and feeling like they have to beg for their pay. Pretty certain everybody on the Metro Council is pro-worker and pro trying to pay workers what they deserve and trying to get them to an amount where they can live in Nashville. So it's not necessary to come and beg. When I say it's supposed to be a conversation, this is your opportunity to say, hey, I heard this is in the mayor's budget, but I think it should be this. And it just brings it to the attention of council members. And I think, and it does work when you have 20, 30, 40, 50 people show up and say the same thing. So when we're talking about what goes into the substitute, it's like, hey, these folks took time out of their day. It makes people nervous to come and speak publicly. So that's a big deal. We should keep this at the front of our mind. So that's why I say it should be a conversation. I don't ever want people to feel like they are begging their elected representatives. We're all part of the same community. We're all wanting Nashville to be the best that it can be. And we know as council members that Nashville can't do anything if we're not taking care of our employees.
Yep, folks at home, just remember our council members are just like us.
We are.
And y'all like a little drama as much as I do, which we have to get into now. So a big thing that happened last week at council, the Central Business Improvement District's budget did not pass.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what unfolded at the meeting and why this issue is so contentious?
So there has been a lot more scrutiny of how things operate downtown. We all know that downtown has become a huge tourist attraction. It generates a lot of revenue. However, there's still the sentiment, and it's accurate, that downtown belongs to everybody, right? It belongs to all of Nashville. And so there were some instances where advocates and residents felt like our unhoused neighbors were being harassed. They felt like there was some racial profiling and some other unsavory things done by the private security that the Downtown Partnership contracts with Solarian. They've since gotten rid of Solarian, but because of those instances, the council has decided just to keep better oversight over how the Downtown Partnership operates, making sure that it is following the values of most of Nashville in terms of how we treat our unhoused neighbors. There's a lot of concern about surveillance. And so it's not a Downtown Partnership is bad. It's just how do we make sure what is happening downtown aligns with how we operate overall as a city. And it has gotten, that can seem contentious because it hasn't been done before. It's not meant to be contentious, but when folks are not used to getting pushback and they start to get pushback, that feels uncomfortable.
Right. And we witnessed a little Metro Council gone wild on the floor, which in history there have been
every now and again.
There's some passionate people who are fighting for us
Yes.
In council. But yeah, it definitely just seems like a sensitive issue. Is downtown safety becoming a bigger budget issue, especially with the Super Bowl on the horizon? Is that inevitable?
Anytime you have millions of people moving around about an area, there are safety concerns, and it is important to have appropriate safety in place. I think the concern is, how do you do that? Is that just policing? How do our other approaches, our alternatives to policing, work in the downtown area so that we're not just pushing unhoused people out, that we're actually helping and treating the root causes of why they're there in the first place? I think that our police capacity is absolutely a concern. Who pays for that? Additional police is a concern, because if the primary reason an increased police presence is needed is because of tourism, then tourism should be paying for that increased police presence instead of everyday residents. Getting folks on board with that. I know MMPD has or would like to have a downtown entertainment unit of officers that are focused on downtown. And there's a large dollar amount attached to that. And there is a sentiment among some council members, why would we pay that out of our general fund if it's just for downtown? And we do pay for officers because obviously we need police presence throughout the county, and we already pay for that. But when you have increased police focus in one particular area, that mostly benefits folks who don't live in Nashville. How do we get those other entities that are benefiting from that increased police presence to pay for it? That's something that we are considering, because it is a strain on resources. There's an economic benefit because it brings in increased sales tax revenue, but there is a strain on resources. It is our obligation as the city to make sure that everyone downtown is safe. Are we solely financially responsible for that?
Right.
That's the question.
Right.
And how do we make sure those resources, the appropriate amount of resources, are there in a way that's not a burden to the rest of the city?
Which brings us back to the question, what does safe mean, and safety for whom?
Safety means a bunch of things. It is not just policing, but you do need, things happen. So you do need to have officers who can respond to criminal activity, but you also have infrastructure. We don't want people getting run over by cars, being able to safely walk the street and cross the street, having spaces where you can safely, I hate to use the same word when I'm trying to define a word, but safety is a variety of different things. It's not just policing. Policing is just one part of safety. Having the appropriate resources in place contributes to safety. For example, we have Red Frogs that operates downtown. If you're a tourist or even a resident, your phone has died, we can't live without our cell phones. Now, your phone dies, it's like you on a deserted island.
Absolutely. If you lost your friends and your phone's
right.
dead, oh my goodness.
So they can charge your phone. If you've had too much to drink, they can give you water and help you in that respect. But they provide a lot of resources that are not related to police that keep people safe. It's not just policing. I know that for some people, when they think of safety, that's all they think of, but there's so many other things that go into it.
That cost a lot of money.
Everything costs a lot of money.
Especially nowadays. So what does compromise between all these different interests look like at this stage? And then what's next?
As the chair, I will work with finance to identify some funding sources that they won't fight me on. Because again, it's when you're funding things in the substitute, you're taking money from other things and putting them towards something else. And so identifying some funding sources where folks may not like that the money is being taken away, but they can live with it. And then also part of that compromise is looking at alternative funding sources. Sometimes if the amount is small enough, a department may be willing to absorb the cost of it. If there is an outside entity that's willing to absorb the cost, going back to the downtown partnership, there are things that we say, hey, this benefits downtown exclusively. Can you cover this? And there are some items where they're like, okay, we can fit that into our budget and we'll take care of it. And then sometimes there are ways that you can time how things how things come through the budget. I remember maybe a couple of fiscal years where if we added a new position to a department, putting funding for half that position, which means that they would hire the position, do hiring in January instead of July. And that works because most of the time folks are not ready to hire come July 1. It's going to take some time. So there's a lot of different conversations that are going to take place over the next week and a half to get to a point where there is an acceptable substitute.
And then by June 16th, our next Metro Council meeting, the substitute will have been filed by then and presented, or how does that work?
So my goal is for the substitute to come out early.
Oh, okay. Council member.
So amendments and substitutes are due next Friday, the 12th, which is the typical deadline for amendments and substitutes. I am trying to get my substitute out earlier than that Friday because that will give colleagues an opportunity to look at it, to see if they want to change anything. If they have some changes and I agree with their changes, those could be incorporated into the substitute prior to the deadline. So that is the goal in getting it out early so people can see it and be prepared. Because typically you don't see what's in an amendment or a substitute until Monday before the council meeting.
When exactly will you be celebrating that this is done?
I am not going to celebrate until it passes on the 16th.
All right. Okay. All right. Final question. If you were going to stand up on the council floor and threaten to fight someone, who would it be and why?
Oh, my goodness. Who would I? Oh, my gosh. That is so funny. So one of my I have a couple of best friends who serve on council with me, but one that I like to bother the most is Councilmember Stiles.
Now, would you ask her to take it outside or just stick to the hallway?
Oh my gosh. That would get such a rise out of her. She wouldn't know what was going on. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for all your work. And it takes a real skill for what you're doing right now. And I know it's keeping you up. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our CityCast Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!